Welcome to Ames Public Library for Genealogy Plus, a program brought to you through partnership with Ames Public Library and the Story County Genealogical Society. I'm Megan, the Adult Services Manager here at Ames Public Library. The library's mission is to connect you to the world of ideas, which we do through diverse and inclusive programs and resources like today's event. We invite you to join us for future programs, which you can learn more about through our current issue of Page 1 or by signing up for our events email. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted to Ames Public Library's YouTube channel after the program ends. So for those of you joining us online, please mute your microphones during the presentation and submit any questions you might have via the chat function. I'll be monitoring the chat to make sure your questions get shared with our speaker, and there will be some time at the end for questions. If you get bumped out of today's event, just follow the link back to get right back in. We do have a handout, and I'll post that to the Ames Public Library website after the event for those of you who are not with us in person. So with that, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Jim from the Ames Family Search Center.
I guess it's on. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, well, this is not the topic that was broadcast, but I figured we've been dealing with artificial intelligence for quite a number of years. It's just lately that it's become sort of a hyped system or activity. As you can see here, virtual assistants. Well, I got another slide for this. This was a good slide to start out. If you see the G over G or G by G, this is a slide that was generated by Geeks for Geeks. And I've moved your mic up higher. Is that better? Okay. So anyhow, I'm doing this presentation, me and Perplexity. Perplexity, well, I figured if we're talking about AI, I ought to get one of them included. So this is the one I chose. Okay, this is a brief guideline of what we're going to do. I'm no expert in this area. In fact, I've been working for about 6 months on it, and I think I'm about 10%. I don't know. There's so much stuff out there, and quite honestly, as you get older, it gets harder. So anyhow, my attempt at AI generated images, and it's interesting, if you look at these images, you'll see the numbers up there. And I think what they tried to say, that first one up there is corporate investments, but that's not what they're saying. And that's one of the things that can tip you off if somebody doesn't make changes on them, is that AI isn't very good at adding text to images. They really mess it up. I mean, I don't know what those words are there. They don't make sense. Anyhow, so number 13, Roots Tech, March 6th to 9th. There are 12 presentations online for AI. So, I mean, four of the big what I consider big names in artificial intelligence will be giving presentations, beginner, intermediate, other areas. So let's keep going. Now, this is a view of not the same as what is in your handout, but this gives you access to many of the people that are more knowledgeable and have demonstrations of how to use AI in actually doing some things in family search or family history research. Hopefully this will take you to those presentations. Legacy Family Tree webinars are very good. A few of them are free. Most of them you have to be a member. And it costs you, I don't know what, it was $50 a year or something like that. But they're very good presentations. And they have, typically they have 2, 3, 4 a week in different areas. And the last one, which was a panel discussion in AI, was last Wednesday. So that's something to be, if you're really interested in. Okay, I need to introduce to you my partner. Perplexity is a website which is, well, I have the pro version of it, but this is off of the free version. And it's interesting. I always wondered why this place was called Perplexity, because in my mind, perplexity is an indication that I'm confused, right? I'm perplexed, right? Well, if you read the writing there, it says perplexity in writing in AI language models is a measure of that evaluates how well a model can predict the next word in a sequence of words. The higher the value, the less sure you can be that it's positive about being right in that next prediction. And so, and how do they calculate this? Well, it's a math equation. They take the probability of the words that would be next, or the tokens that would be next, and then they average it, etc., and they come up with a number, an integer. If it's less than 5, it's a little bit more sure. If it's more than 5, it's a guess. The other thing that AI likes to do is hallucinate. And and I'm not so certain that I won't be hallucinating in some of the things that I said, that I'm saying, because I may be wrong, but it's my best understanding of what's going on. It's a good site, and I'll open it up later on. It costs $20 a month for the pro version, but if you're going to do a lot of the stuff that such as evaluating text and doing handwriting conversion, OCR, those types of things, you'll need to have a subscription to these types, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, any of those. You'll need to have a subscription because the free usually don't permit you to upload stuff. The other thing about Perplexity is that it gives you websites as to where it got the information from, which Gemini does, but none of the other sites that I've gone on, Copilot and ChatGPT, the free versions, give you an indication of where they're getting this information from. Okay, let's talk about intelligence. In many cases, what's trying to be done is emulate human beings. And so this is basically the definition, a definition of intelligence. It's the mental capacity to learn, reason, adapt to new situations. And in the range of cognitive abilities that allow individuals to perceive, process, apply information effectively in their environments. Now I get to thinking, I say, well, animals are intelligent. So can they problem solve? Well, some can. Some are stupid as the log, but some can. Adapt to environments, yes, they definitely can. Have the ability to acquire, to learn, and to apply it in future situations, yes, they can. Extract, do extract thinking. Well, I don't know how you would evaluate that as far as an animal is concerned. Anyhow, but these are the 5 things that one would say, does my computer model actually is actually capable of doing these things? And so if you look here, the artificial intelligence is basically the fact that a computer can do things that you would think a human can do without guidance or without support. They can do it by themselves. They can learn. There are several types of learning, machine learning. This is machine learning is typically what they apply to computers so that they can do pattern recognitions. And there are books out there will give you Python code that will tell you how to generate a program to do that out of a set of data. That part has been going on for many years. I mean, in fact, that goes back into the 1960s, 1970s, that some version of that's been going on. The deep learning now is also not that new. I mean, it's I think it started in the 2010s, that type of thing. Is where you use artificial neural networks to focus on unstructured data that isn't labeled, data that is just out there, and you try to and the program is supposed to make sense out of it. And it uses text and images. And then you get into where the ChatGPT was making the headway is your natural language processing, where you interact with the machine with language, either text or talking or those types of things. And then you have computer vision. Well, that's been around for a long time because factories use that to sort out. Oh, it went to sleep. I'm getting boring. I put that thing to sleep. Okay. And then you have types of machine learning. You got your supervised, where you have given labels so that, hey, this is a cat. These pictures are associated with a cat. So therefore, when you see something like that, it's a cat. And here's a dog. Well, it's not a cat. You know, these types of things. And then reinforcement learning is where you have a large language model, and then you give them feedback as to whether they're right or wrong or these types of things. Okay, now this is similar to what the first slide is, and that you can see that how long has Siri or Alexa or Google Assistant been out there? I mean, basically, they're interacting with you in natural language. You know, hey Siri, what's the weather going to be like? Whatever, you know, these types of things. When your smart home technology, you know, smart devices and stuff. My sister, who's older than I am, is not tech savvy. She asked the phone company whether or not they had a smartphone that had a low IQ, because she didn't want to have to deal with all these things that those phones do. And he just looked at her and was wondering. Anyhow, there's a lot of areas. Fraud detection, personal finance advice, entertainment. You get all these things about, well, you would really like to see this movie or this one here. Hey, I don't care. How do you figure I'm interested in that stuff? But that's what they do. One of the things that amazed me was a rollout of the 1950 census. And I looked, I wouldn't say exhaustively, but I looked to find if somebody actually detailed all the details that happened with this or put together a story as to what happened. I haven't found it. I found parts of it. I found the part that Family Search did. I found the part that Ancestry did. I found the part that NARA did, but none of it was inclusive. So anyhow, a microfilm set, which was generated in the 1952, took place of something like 32,000 boxes. I mean, these paper boxes of paper. They said it was enough to go across the US several times if you put them end to end. And so they turned that into a microfilm publication called T628. That was the source of the April 1st, 1920 or 2022 submission, or what was made available. Now, it turns out that those paper documents don't exist because they destroyed them. So there's a lot of information contained on those documents that isn't available anymore. Now, they're basically the farm sheets and a few other sheets that probably they got the information off, reduced it. Come on. Whoops, I need to go back. Reduced it to probably published documents as to what the statistics were for that deal. Anyhow, the National Archives and Record Administration digitized the microfilm over, as far as I could find out, over a period of about 10 years, starting in 2012, which is when they published the 1940 census. And also fast digitization of microfilm didn't come into effect until about that time. And this is when the time when the Family Search started digitizing all their microfilm. And so basically you don't order that anymore, you go to a digital copy. Now, you can go to 1950census.archives.gov and you can download that whole set of stuff. You don't have to be anybody special, you can download it. But it's 165 terabytes. What does that amount to? You have to have 14 big hard drives in order to store that, which will cost you about $2,000 just to store it. Don't worry about thumb drives.
How long would it take to download to?
Well, quite honestly, I attempted. I attempted that. And then I realized that, hey, I don't want to do this. And I stopped it. But yeah. Anyhow, it can be done. There's a story shared about the 1940 census. The people from Family Search were down waiting outside the office that day they were going to admit it, and they had boxes of hard drives that they were going to transfer the stuff to bring it out. This made it a lot easier. Okay, the indexing process. The initial OCR conversion was done by Amazon Web Services, track tools. It did basically generated a name association to the records. Now, have any of you gone to the website and tried to find any information off of that? It's not the easiest thing to negotiate. You got to have finding enumeration district maps to figure out what number to put in to go look for a name. And it's not the easiest thing to do. Well, Ancestor came along and they had developed a proprietary AI handwriting recognition technology. And so they generated an index to that thing, to that whole census. And the index, I believe they indexed every entry that was on the line. In other words,
So back up at the start, are the boxes of paper transferred directly to the microfilm as images? I mean, does the microfilm represent all the images on the papers?
it represents the images that was in the census that was deemed important to keep. So there are some farm records, there are some other records. And if you go to the NARA site and mess around, you can find out what schedules weren't kept.
And were the ones that they deemed unimportant then?
They were deleted along with the important ones. But the important ones had been digitized or converted to actually converted to a microfilm.
Were the unimportant ones that were, compilation of data, or were they individual?
I believe they were the individual ones.
That didn't get microfilm?
Yeah. Yeah, housing records, there were some farm records, I believe. There were some other records that were extra above what the idea of a census was.
Or required to meet government
Specifications, yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
was involved, well, I went on to Family Search back in 22. I don't know if it was before April 1st or after, but anyway, they were asking people to look at the records and then make sure that what was indexed or what was shown on the census record to basically make sure everything was
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
The record, yeah, I guess the recognition of the handwritten version of it.
Well, that's still ongoing. In other words, you go to Family Search and you look at a record, you look at the index, and you say, well, and I did that with my mother. My mother and father were on there, and they said my mother was 36, my father was 30. And I said, that ain't right. And so I looked at the record, and somebody's zero had a little tail on it. And so they assumed that was 36. Well, so I went and changed that. And so that's still available here with, Family Search for sure. I'm sure that Ancestry and MyHeritage have that same type of facility capability. And that's this one down here. Basically, they did the census, they did in 9 days. They converted the census, made the census index so that you could go and search it. Whereas in 1940 took, 9 months? And then it was still because of the indexing, which had to be done by people looking at it and taking information off. So anyhow, in my mind, this use of AI in this manner is a real enhancement to the whole genealogy research program, and the converting of records that are in image form to text form or handwritten form to text form is one of the big blessings of AI. Now, a little break here. John Doe walked barefoot most of the time, which produced an impressive set of calluses on his feet. He also ate very little, which made him rather frail. And with his odd diet, he suffered from bad health, bad breath. This made him a super callous, fragile, mystic, hexed by halitosis. Okay? Now, this is a dad joke. I looked and tried to figure out where this thing came from, but it's a dad joke, okay? And so I questioned perplexity. I said, why would people consider this funny? And I thought he would say, I don't know, I don't have a sense of humor or something like that. Well, he came out and said, it's considered funny because of the Disney. Come on. There we go.
Oh, wrong page.
No, wrong one. Okay. Well, it went back to not far enough, but anyhow, it said Mary Poppins. And so I asked Perplexity, how many vowels are there in the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? And he said, well, it contains 16 vowels. And you count them up, and well, you're right. And then then the program had to go on and said, well, its breakdown is there's 2 A's, there's one E, there's 7 I's, there's 3 O's, and 3 U's. And then they talked about a Y. And I said, what in the world? So it's wrong. It can't count right. And the reason I asked this question was that one of the problems that people always say this AI program doesn't work well is ask them how many R's there are in strawberry. Now, and usually they used to come up with 2. Now that question has been out there long enough that my thought is that Perplexity is smart enough from prior learning to know that strawberry for sure has 3 R's. Does it know in other things? And so basically it can't count. That doesn't count. So basically it should be 3 A's, 2 E's, 7 I's, we got that, but then 2 O's and 2 U's, and where's the Y? Why are you even talking about a Y? Anyhow, this is what they call this is what you expect out of this. Okay, now let's go and how can let's see what, oh wow, okay. GPTs, which are generative pre-trained transformers. What's a transformer? We'll get to it. Tools enhance efficiency, accuracy, and depth of genealogical investigation in several key areas. It helps in document analysis and information by making things searchable and easy to analyze. They have pattern recognition and relationship identification. The smart search and recovery of discovery, rather. Well, you can read them. Overcoming research challenges in language and handwriting barriers, translates foreign language documents and transcribe handwritten text. Basically, you can take a document written in legalese, ask your chat GPT to rewrite it in a understandable mode, whether it's for a high school kid or for this or for a grade school kid or whatever, and it will do it. Is it accurate? Well, you probably have to read both in order to figure out. The thing that you should be cautioned about translation, you need to have enough knowledge to be able to discern whether the translation was done right or not. In other words, basically, if you're can speak Spanish and or aware of Spanish, then to use this to translate Spanish documents would be an aid because it can do it pretty fast. If you don't speak Spanish, then it will still do the translation pretty fast, but you won't know whether it's doing it right. So that's one of the problems with the GPTs. They don't necessarily get things right. DNA analysis, it's a math problem. Transcription and summarization, it is very good at summarization. And Perplexity is very good at giving them a text, and they'll go and feed you out a summary of it. If it's in English, then you can go and check them out, and you can check them. They're probably very good in enhanced storytelling. In fact, they can generate pretty good stories. In fact, they may be too good at that. But the important thing is that this is a tool, and you need to evaluate what it gives you in your research, because it can give you some wild goose, send you in a lot of directions you probably don't really want to go. Okay, let's go through this. GPT models. The big name one is, of course, ChatGPT 4. There's a 01, there's an 02, there's 01 mini, there's whatever. There's all kinds of different versions of that. And most of that is the result is how many parameters they've generated. You know, are you using 420 trillion parameters to get your information, or are you using 1 billion? You know, it's just the size of that thing. None of these deal with words. They deal with tokens, which have an integer assigned to it. And then they embed this into a big multi-dimensional vector. And that's where they store the knowledge in, is in this vector, in numbers, etc. It's true of all these. There is Claude, and there's a variety of versions of Claude. There's Gemini. Then there's those that you can do on your own computer. There is the Llama, which is Meta's free version, open source version. You can go and download Llama, this thing right here, Llama. Put it on your computer. It can be on Windows. I don't know if they have one for a Chromebook, but they got it for Windows, and they got it for Linux and for Apple. And then you go and you download one of these databases or one of these models. And then you can go and you can do everything that most of what these big GPTs online can do on your own computer, except for you need to have a pretty good computer. I mean, it needs to have probably a GPU on it that's capable and a very good processor. If you choose the right size of your model, a 1 billion, actually a Raspberry Pi, which is a little bitty thing, can give you reasonable performance on those. Anyhow. Main applications, well, Microsoft Copilot uses one of these models. Perplexity, which is what I've used, uses a variety of models. In fact, with Perplexity, you can choose to use GPT 4 or Claude or Gemini. Well, I don't know about Gemini. But anyhow, you have a variety of choices of what you can use. Now, it's interesting that I've never heard of Jasper before, but it helps you make marketing decisions. Claude has document analysis and questioning and answering capabilities. Then there's Duolingo, Max. Did you know that there's a language learning process that uses AI, Duolingo? And then there's a Copilot down there, which is for healthcare professionals. Okay, this is a transformer. This is the logic diagram that, well, I found on Amazon Web Services. Actually, this, I think, was generated in a paper called All You Need Is Attention, which is what came out in about 2017. And that's is basically what much of the GPTs now are using is that form. It turns out that they're saying that, well, maybe there's other ways of doing it. But you see an NX there. Well, the NX means that you run it through many, 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 many steps between the input to the output. And those steps are basically these neural networks over here, which have, as the hidden layers are probably on the order of 100, 200, 300, 400 layers of different evaluation that goes on. And you stash information in each one of those layers as it goes through. Basically, to go from the input layer to the first hidden layer, you have a set of weighting factors and a set of biases that mathematically generate numbers. And anyhow, it's not the simplest stuff. I don't understand it completely, or maybe hardly at all, but anyhow. But basically, what you need to remember is it doesn't have your large language models don't know what a cat is. Cat doesn't mean anything to it. But cat has a token assigned to it in the vocabulary that is generated for this large model. That token has an integer value. It's a number. Therefore, a computer can deal with it. Okay? And then, each LLM has a vocabulary, bigger, smaller, whatever. But it goes through token processing, and then this is a next token prediction. It takes one token, it looks at what you've given it, it generates a token. And it goes back, looks at what you've given it, plus this token, generates the next token. And so it goes through this repeatedly. You need a lot of computing power to do this. And you have what is called a context window. Well, that's how much it can remember. In other words, if you give it 128K of tokens, it's going to start forgetting. It's not going to remember what you had. So you have a concept or a context window. Not all models have the same size, so you have to be aware of how much you feed it. Then you have the input embedding, where you input not only do the token, but you input where it's located in your prompt, how it's related, and all the other things going down. Let's go on. One of the people that seem to know what they're talking about is Andrew Redfern. He's an Australian. He's listed on the sheet for several training sessions that he gives. But these are his words of wisdom, is that you're working with words, not facts. It generates words. So what you have to be careful is that you figure out what the facts are. It's not a Google search. Well, that's not quite true anymore with some of the newer ones, because they do a Google search and then they use that to generate their answer. That's what Perplexity does. It looks at different websites, and I think it does a summation off of those websites. One of the big pushes is the crafting of prompts. How do you ask it to get what you want? How do you generate the prompts that you give it? And he says, well, you need to choose verbs. You need to start a new chat each time you kind of change directions. Anyhow. And then Steve Little is one that says, well, it's good for summarization, extraction, generation of text and stories, and translation. So anyhow, I need to go. And then basically, one of the things that he's really strong on is that you need to structure your prompts with a role, a goal, text, which you add to it so that it can go and pull information out of it, and then a task. What do you want it to do? And then he adds flash down there. In other words, what do you want the output to look like? Do you want a table? Do you want a summarization? Whatever. Okay. And then this is Perplexity's version of it. And if you see over here, this is another source. The role could be as a marketeer, as an advisor, as a genealogist, as a professional genealogist, whatever. But on you go. Okay. My cousin, actually, I guess it's 2 times removed, by the name of Kyle Marsden, passed away. And so I pulled this, his obituary, off of the funeral home's website. And it goes on. I didn't have space for it. So I asked Perplexity, I say, give a table of people listed in the attachment, which is this, with their respective relationships, along with any dates in that account. Okay, this is genealogy, right? Now I'm into the genealogy mode. I won't bore you anymore with the other stuff, which, by the way, is what's interesting to me, is how that stuff works. As a kid, I was disciplined many times trying to figure out how things worked. A lot of things got taken apart. No toy was left dismantled. Well, undismantled, let's put it that way. Now, in the perfect world, I could get them back together and no problem, right? Well, I didn't live in the perfect world. And the dad was wasn't very pleased with that. Anyhow, and this is what it generated. And you can see it talked about Kyle as the deceased. It talked about his wife, gave a marriage date, gave a deceased date. It didn't give a birth date. Well, not in this table, but in a summary below, it gave more information. And so it still had that. And then there's the grandchildren and et cetera. So how long did this take? Well, once I uploaded it to Perplexity, it was about 1.5 minutes. It wasn't even that long, maybe half a minute. It took me longer to generate this because Perplexity doesn't export stuff well. And so I had to generate this table. It gave you the data in a form that will import into a spreadsheet easily. but you have to do the importing and then that type of thing. Okay, what are some of the common AI features in the big three or three that I can gain access to without having to pay for it? And so they have record matching, and Family Search comes with record hints. If you've got a Family Search account, chances are you get lots of them throughout the week. MyHeritage, they put out a lot of record matches, I tell you, and Ancestry. And then you have handwriting recognition, which is full text search, which we'll go into. And they have something similar in the other ones. One of the things, well, that's the next one. These are the unique ones. An AI assistant for natural language searches and getting evolved. MyHeritage has those. MyHeritage is more into the photograph stuff than any of the other ones are. And then Ancestry has its things. Aha, okay. Now I'm going to do an exit. I put that one down. I go to there. Okay, and this is basically, I'm going to backtrack a bit. This is the stuff that I did on Kevin. And see, there's a table it generated. It generated the table well. It's just that I had a problem exporting it. And then it came down here and it gave it the information. It was born, where, graduated, and these types of things. And so, like I said, that to get that information out of the text was about a half a minute. And so it really enhances that part of your research. Now, it's supposed to be able to take a handwriting or a image off of a newspaper and convert it with OCR and give you the same type of thing. And if you look at some of the presentations by Little and Redfern and stuff, they actually do this, but most of them use ChatGPT. Okay, this is where I'm going now. Okay, Family Search. What do they offer? Well, let's go to Heinrich. I don't see. Okay. And if you go to About, they give you a history, which is AI generated. And they give you opportunity to write a story and some other things on that. They also, let's go to details again. Yeah. They also have what to say is a quality score, which is how good a data do you have. Now, as I've looked at the stuff that I have in there, the stuff that's important to me, they all have a high quality score. I don't know whether the records are that good or they're just that unpicky. I don't know, but anyhow. So those are two that are obvious. Now, the next thing that one can do is, let's see, let me get back to my front page. Still got to get back to my first page. There we go. And if you scroll down, you find there's a Family Search Labs. This is where Family Search puts in the new technology that they're trying to develop. Okay, and so if you go to view experiments, if it's nice to me, it talks about the available experiments available. Well, they're getting into this family good group trees and that type of thing. This is a fairly new feature right there. They will permit you, well, they're working on it. They will permit you to have your own tree feature on Family Search, which this used to be what they call the genealogies, where you can upload a GEDCOM file, it'd be there, it could be searched, you couldn't change it. Well, now what they're doing is they're looking into letting you upload your GEDCOM file. You can edit, you can invite trusted people to edit it. Family Search has access to the deceased individuals that are on the list, but none of the living. So, and nobody else can see those living except for those that are connected with the, that are permitted. But where I want to go is to the full text stuff. I don't know how many of you use the full text, but it's an interesting process. So what I want to do is go and find my why aren't you writing? There we go. And I want to do Iowa. Okay, and I want to search. Now it's going to come up with everything that this is not everything the Family Search has on micro or on digitized on there, but they do have stuff that they have converted, done OCR on, and have an index generated for it. But let me see. Let's go to this Herald here. Let's go here. And here is an issue. See how that thing is situated? Look what they say over here. You start running into some issues here. Was an agent of what? SR. He was the president. So this, well, they're not doing too bad a job on that. Yesterday, scroll down.
Transferred.
Oh, they did a pretty good job on that. Yesterday, it was trash. Didn't make sense. Well, let's go to another one and see if it do the same thing. Yeah, just when you want to show something, they mess you up. Anyhow, what they have here is you can go here and get a summarization of it, and it uses AI. It generates a summary of the stuff. Now, basically, you can download a transcript of this, and you can get the record, and you can get the transcripts and the citations, or you can get just the no record image, or they have a variety of stuff you can download and then bring it down to your own text. So let me go back. Better off here.
And does that mean you don't need a subscription to newspapers anymore?
No. No, this is based upon the stuff that Family Search has in their archives. If you need, I mean, your newspapers.com and stuff like that has a lot of newspapers that Family Search doesn't even probably want to deal with. So.
But it must, newspapers.com, when you do a search, must use AI then.
Yeah, But here again, you got Ancestry, and you do it through Ancestry. I don't want to pay that much money for newspapers.com. I mean, they keep telling me I can do that, but let's see, let me get back here to, okay, there we go. That's where we want to be. Okay, what I'm looking for is Palo Alto, and it brings me up to a, okay, that's a transcript of a probate of my great-grandfather. And you can download the whole conversion to text, and then you can go through and modify the text. If that's, I mean, basically that's the way Family Search is dealing with AI and OCR and all this other stuff. Okay, now let's go back and see if I can get back to my PowerPoint. Okay. Now, okay. Yeah, well. What is? Come on, mouse. Well, I don't want that side, but anyhow, well, it's not. Okay, good. Okay, this is the Colossus data center in Memphis, Tennessee. Elon Musk put this center together. This is just one row down, looking down at. This big twin here has 8 GPUs in it, which are graphic processor units. They are a necessity to do what these large language models do. I mean, they process stuff fast. Okay, one of these units is about $250,000. Okay, each one of these racks has eight of these units in it. They're water cooled. So you have a huge water cooling system for this place. So one rack is 64. 100,000 GPUs amounts to about 1,500 of these modules. Each module pulls about 5 kilowatts of power, which happens to be a ton of Snickers. I can visualize what a ton of Snickers is. Okay. The Tennessee Valley Authority has authorized them to pull 150 megawatts of power. How much is that? Well, the city of Ames in August of 1923, or 2023, had a peak load at 137 megawatts. That's for the whole city. And what this one, well, maybe a city block will be using is more than that. So there's a question as to whether all this stuff is, whether it's worth it, whether it's worth the energy being used, whether it's going to pay for itself. I don't have the answer. A lot of people think they do, but anyhow.
Did Elon Musk build his own power source?
Well, actually, Milan has a huge array of batteries there that they draw the power from, and then they charge the batteries. The reason that is needed is because these things pull power, a heck of a lot of power at one point in time and not too much at other times. So you really have all kinds of surges. A battery can take that, a power grid can't. And so he's got, if you see pictures outside, you'll see semis or big blocks of his big battery storage units out there. And so I would assume he has enough to cover 150 megawatts in batteries, which is probably a heck of a lot of batteries. I don't know. Anyhow, my concern is there's a lot of this going on, and whether it makes sense or not. Okay, I'm done. A conclusion, let's put it that way. Artificial intelligence is all the way around us, and it's been there for several decades. Well, we're going to get another pretty picture. Yeah, okay, I should be able to go back one. If you use AI tools, if you want to use the AI tools mentioned, first try the free version. By the way, if you use Google as a search engine and you ask it a question, you're going to get AI response. And the AI response will give you a source, and it will also export that in a fairly decent manner. Also, that would be Google Gemini. But if you want to, there's a free version of Chat GPT. There's a free version of Claude. Usually they're limited, both either the number of questions you can ask them or what it's going to do. Most of those free versions won't permit you to upload text. So if you want to do summations and stuff like that, you probably have to buy it. Okay. As I've said before, I use Perplexity in this situation because it lets me look at GPT-4, Grok 2, which is Elon Musk's version, Claude, and many others. So I can do comparisons to see just which one gives me what I want, or maybe convinces me that I want something. I don't know. Anyhow. It's good for summarization, extraction, translation. Where text needs to be uploaded, you will probably have to pay. Number two, the next one is my version of what's happening right now, and it's the whole AI hype currently is to sell the usage of these tools so they can not go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. Because many of these tools, like OpenAI, they run into billions of dollars in a negative expense. The other thing is the current large language models are bad in reasoning, but are good in memorization. Some of them, there are some out there that will actually give you the steps of their reasoning process. And it's kind of interesting to look at those steps. They're kind of pathetic in many cases. And anyhow, final note, remember Roots Tech 2025. As I said, there's 12 sessions, online sessions, both that are on AI in some manner or the other. And it's Steve Little has several, Redfern has a couple, James Tanner has a couple, has one. And so there's a variety of people that will be training. Plus, Roots Tech 2024 probably has information that's a year old. The stuff that's coming out now probably would be within a couple months of what's happening. And this stuff is moving fast. I mean, it's changes. Okay. Any questions? Good. Mary?
As fast as things are changing, how do you suggest people cope with this with common sense. Talked to a woman, I think she's probably around 80 a few days ago. And she said, oh, and she seems very of sound mind. And she said, oh, I don't want any of that AI stuff at all. I'm not going to get involved. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I've got a couple interactions. A lady was really upset because Ancestry was using AI, and therefore they shouldn't be doing that. And, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with AI. It's just how much trust you put in it. I mean, do you want to let it, take all your money and invest it and expect? I mean, there's a lot of people saying that somebody used this AI program, invested $5,000 and came up with $30,000 in a month's time. I don't know if I would trust them, you know, because my luck would be I'd get a dumb one. But anyhow, so anything that you do, you need to check. You need to make sure that, and saw one of the things that AI is good at is coding. In other words, creating computer code. And there is concern that with AI, you won't need any programmers anymore. Well, there was another guy that said, well, we use AI for coding, and it takes them about 1.5 minutes to generate the code, and me 3 hours to figure out whether it's right or wrong. And he said, in 1 hour's time, I can generate the code, and in 15 minutes, I can debug it. And so, you know, where are you? So you got to be very careful with that stuff, because you remember the large language model it predicts the next token, and it has no big view of what's happening. Well, they try to, but now there is, and there's a slide here. I'm not going to go in there much, but why are you going backwards? There's some math for you. There. They're not talking about LCMs instead of large language models. This is large concept models. And so now instead of looking at the next token or the next word, they're looking at the next concept. A concept is what, a sentence or two? And they claim that this is a way to go and to get reasoning and stuff going on. One of the things about this way is using concept is you don't have to re-educate your large language model when you change languages. Basically, your concept can be interpreted into the language of Spanish or the language of Ukraine. It's a concept. And so all this hardware that's there has to do is to make the conversion by language for that same concept.
Used it one time. Oh yeah, my husband used it one time, and he took my chart. There was information on there he didn't understand the terminology. You could take the terms and put them into Google and find out what the terms meant.
Yeah.
But he just took the whole thing and said, "Can you explain this in plain English to one of these AI systems?" And they came back with a pretty good explanation.
Yeah, well, see, that's where you can take a legal document, for instance, put it into a large language model, and tell it to rewrite this in the form of that a middle school person can understand, and it will do that. Does it leave out stuff? I don't know.
I think the thing that's so hard about AI is that it's changing so fast.
It's changing fast.
And that's the kind of reaction you get from somebody who, like the person you're talking about, Mary, like it's so rapidly evolving that like, how could you possibly keep up even if you understood the very basics. But it's also inevitable, like it's everywhere these days. You can't do a Google search without it providing an AI summary up at the top. So you just have to have the digital literacy and general literacy to be able to determine, is this good information or bad information? Which is an inherent problem in our society.
Well,
to start with.
as a student in college in 1969, I learned to program IBM 360. This phone, even though it's low IQ'd probably by now, it's an old one, had a lot more capabilities than what the 360 did. And that was what, 60 to 70, that's 50 years. I mean, things change. And then that makes life interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I want to suggest something.
Oh, hold on. The laptop is talking.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Pat Coffey. And what I think we should remember is that individually, we love convenience. And that drives artificial intelligence, computer applications. We're doing it.
Sure. Did y'all get that? That AI is driven by convenience and our human desire for convenience, and that we're driving it. We're in control.
Well, that example I showed of Kyle's obit, one can do that. It would take me maybe, what, 30 minutes to pull that information out, maybe less than that. Type it into a spreadsheet and away you go. And that's basically what the big push of AI is to make it convenient, save you time. Well, we still have 24 hours a day. I don't know that anybody is that busy, but anyhow.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, next month's Genealogy Plus, I'm just trying to find the date, will be held on February 19th in this space and also on Zoom. We'll be joined by Dr. Paul Lasley next month. Please let's thank our speaker today for his time. Thank you.